We are on Pesach Amud Aleph at the two dots, about a quarter of the way down, 88A2. So Menachasim and Shabbatim. So if the woman wants to collect from Menachasim and Shabbatim so these properties were mortgaged. There was a lien against them for the ksuba, but they got sold. So now it's not owned by her husband anymore or by his family, or by his heirs. So she needs to take a shavua. Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah. Orphans, so meaning if the guy dies, his children are not allowed to collect the debt unless someone takes a shavua. Miman. So who are they? What's the case? Who are they collecting from? Why couldn't why do they need a debt to collect? If they have a star that it's paid, they should get it immediately. They have the leverage by finding the star, the loan document among their father's papers. If this Mishnah, which is in Shavuos, is saying that they're collecting from a stam, a regular borrower, their father could collect without taking a shvua. Why would they have to take a shvua in order to collect this loan? So no. So this was what that Mishnah must be talking about. If one set of yisomim were collecting from a different set of yisomim, they could only receive the money with the shvua. If they take a shvua that it wasn't paid. So Amr of Zreka, meaning Ruvain died and had heirs, and Shimon died and he had heirs, and Ruvain had borrowed money from Shimon. So Shimon's kids, or the apotropos or whatever, whoever is collecting on behalf of Shimon's kids, are trying to collect the loan from Ruvain's kids. So Rav Zreka said that we're saying that, excuse me, so the Gemara said that when Shimon's kids are trying to collect from Ruvain's kids, they need to take a shvua, Shimon or someone on behalf of Shimon's kids, in order to collect. Amr of Zikr, Amr of Yehuda, lo shanu elisha amr yisomim amr lanu abba lavisi uparati. So Reb Zeka said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, this is only true when Ruvain's kid said, our father told us that he borrowed, but he paid it back. That's when you need a shvua. Aval amru amr lanu abba lo lavisi apishur lo yipar. But if Ruvain's kid said, our father had told us, I never borrowed money from Shimon before he died, and then he died, and then Shimon's kids are trying to collect money, then Shimon's kids are not able to collect at all. Wait a second. Shimon had borrowed money to Reuven, I said. So Shimon told his kids that I never so Reuven had told his kids I never borrowed from Shimon. So then Shimon's kids aren't allowed to collect at all. Even if they're willing to take a shvua that it wasn't paid back, they're not able to collect. Maskif Rava asked this. Rabba, it should be the opposite. There's a principle that whoever said I never took the loan, if they say I didn't take the loan, that's also included in that claim is I never paid this back. Because they're denying ever taking it. So implicit in that is that they certainly didn't pay it back. Because let's say one guy's collecting a loan from the other. So what can he say? He could say, I paid it back already. Or he could say, I never even took the loan. So the Gemara says there's a principle. If the guy says, I never took the loan out, that includes that he didn't pay it back. So he's not even so it's included that he's saying, I never paid it back. So that's true. If he didn't take a loan, he has nothing to take back. But included in this thing that I never borrowed from him means I never paid it back. So basically, so I guess it's saying that there's a difference if one guy says I lent money and the other guy says I paid it back. So there's some type of stalemate and there's rules. We'll see some of them here about who's has the upper hand. But if the other one says I never even took a loan, well, he's So then we have a different thing. So the one guy is saying there was a loan here and it wasn't paid back, and the other one said there wasn't a loan here. So it's a different type of stalemate, right? At least in the first case, they both acknowledged that the loan took place, and here they did. So because of this principle, so if Shimon's kids are trying to collect from Reuven, and Reuven's kids said, "My father said he never paid it back," that includes that I didn't pay it back. So that doesn't make sense. And according to the halachos of claims of loans and repayments, it doesn't make sense that they couldn't get it back, because what's going on here? Shimon's kids have a star. Reuven's kids are denying the loan ever take place. So who's stronger? Want the side with the star or the side saying the loan doesn't take place? The side with the star is much stronger. They have a star that documents there was a loan. So the other one says we never even took the loan. The facts are strongly against what you're saying, because they have a star. If the loan never took place, how would they have a star? So they should be able to collect. So why did the Gemara explain that in that case the Yisomim of Shimon couldn't even collect? So Ela Yidmar Hachi Yidmar. So what the Gemara's Rav Zreika's statement must have been the following. Amar Rav Zreika Amar Rav Yehuda Lo Shanu Elisha Amar Yisomim. This is true that the Yisomim from the Yisomim only collect if they're willing to take a shvua that they never receive the money. Shamar Yisomim Amar Lanu Abba Lavisu Parati. That's if the Reuven's kid said our father said that he borrowed it and he paid it back. So if Shimon's kids want to get it back, they have to take a shvua, and then whoever's in charge of Reuven's estate is going to have to pay the estate of Shimon. Amru Lanu Abba Lola Visi. If the Yisomim of Reuven says that my father said that I never even borrowed, Nifrain Shalo B'Shvua, Shimon's heirs can receive the payment even without having to take a shvua that they didn't receive the money. Shekala Amr Lo Lavisi, Kamar Lo Parati Dami. Because whoever said I didn't borrow is as if they said they didn't pay back. And since there's a big piece of evidence that there was a loan, because Shimon's kids have a star, so they collect even without a shvua. And even though normally we don't collect from Yisomim without a shvua, when it's Yisomim from a Yisomim, in the case where the Yisomim who are demanding the money back have a star, and the other ones say, well, our father said he never even took the loan, they're at such a major disadvantage that what they're saying has very little credibility. So the one Yisomim are able to collect from the other Yisomim even without a oath. Two dots. V'nifras shelo b'fanav lo tipar al b'shvua. If the wife is trying to collect her ksuva, not when the husband is not there, she needs to take an oath. Amar Rav Acha Sarhabira. Rav Acha Sarhabira. Rashi says it was his nickname, Sarhabira, but it sounds more like it's his title. Maybe Rashi means title, but so the officer of the capital. Ma'isa balifnei Rabbi Yitzchak ba'Antichia. There was an incident that happened in front of Rabbi Yitzchak in Untichia. So this is very interesting, and it's there seems to be two different opinions about it, and one is related to Hanukkah. So Antuchia is probably the city Antioch. So Antioch is in Syria, pretty much up the coast of the Mediterranean. Nowadays, it's in Turkey. I forget if it's called Lataka or something. And it's on a river called no, there's a river. So the city Antioch is named after someone named Antiochus. Probably not the Antiochus from Hanukkah, but it's clearly so even though that city was a great ancient Greek city, there clearly was some connection there, that there was a Jewish community there. So this is the Pasha. So the city was in northern Syria, if not even outside of Syria, and that's where it was. Rashi though says in Sanhedrin that Antuchia is by the border of Eretz Yisrael at the end, and it was in the land that was by the Hamas, by Eretz Hamas, which isn't the same Hamas that we're Charis with now, but it says with Meraglim, Ad Lavo Hamas. And we hold that it's not, oh, that's a Rashi from Yecheskel. And Rashi in Sanhedrin says it's not from Eretz Yisrael. So it's just on the other side of the border of Eretz Yisrael. So according to this, it would not be the city Antioch because that's way up northeast, excuse me, northwest, and Meraglim would not have been from the west. They would have been from the east, even if they would have been high from in the north side, they would not have been that far west. So it seems to be two different opinions what this is, where this city is. The Amar and Rav Yitzchak said, Lo shanu elo l'ksuvas isha mishum china. So when we say that if the wife is trying to collect from her husband is property and he's not there, she has to make a shvua because of chen. So chen, we said, was there were certain sweeteners, should we call them, for the ksuva, because women weren't marrying the men because they had no assurances that they were ever going to receive the promised ksuva. So we learned a few weeks ago. First, it was in the chassan's father's house, but that still wasn't so accessible to her. And so if he got mad, he said, "The money's already there for you. Go get it." But then if it's in his family's house, how's he going to get it? So then he had to put it in her father's house until they changed the ksuva, the whole format of it, and they said all of his possessions are have a lien against them to repay the ksuva. So because of this idea of chen that she should want to get married to him and be able to collect the ksuva, that's why she would have to take a shavua. Aval ba'chov lo, but a regular creditor. So let's say Naphtali is trying to get money from God, and meaning God borrowed money from Naphtali. Naphtali's trying to collect, but God is overseas now. So he says to the Beis Din, "Look, I have the star. I want it to collect. I want this. He's not around because he went overseas. Can the Beis Din, with the authority of the Beis Din, can you give me from his money or sell one of his fields so I can get paid back?" So in that case, so we say no. So the Beis Din could do it according to Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, or to Rav Yitzchak. I mean, the Bach says it's Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. I didn't have time to look up what the difference between the two Rav Yitzchaks were, but it's when it's just two people in a business deal. One is collecting a loan from the other or whatever. He does not have to make an oath that he didn't get it paid back. The Beis Din believes him just from the fact that he has the star, and they let him collect without an oath, even though God isn't around to speak in his own behalf. But Rava Amar of Nachman argued in that on what Rav Yitzchak said, and they said, Afilu Balchov, even if Naphtali is just trying, it's not a case of a ksuva, but he's trying to get paid back from God, but God is overseas, he has to take a shvua that God didn't pay him back. Because if we wouldn't do this, then anyone would take other people's money and then go to Medinas Hayam and then never pay it back. And then people would never borrow money anymore because you could borrow money, go overseas. If you wouldn't have to, if it couldn't get paid, then no one's going to be able to get money. Something doesn't sound right with what I said. So Tosfos says that the Rach Paskins that no, we don't we don't the Beis Din won't collect from the guy if he's not there. But it seems it's machlokas rishonim and the Shulchan Aruch doesn't paskin that way. Okay, so now based on our Mishnah, we had a part that didn't make much sense. So at the Mishnah, we had a bunch of cases where if she pogemis ksuva, meaning she had collected partial ksuva, and now she wants the rest, before, and now she wants the rest. She needs a shvua. If one witness testified that it was paid, and she said that it wasn't paid, she needs to take a shvua. If she collects from the yisomim or from properties that were indebted but had been sold, or shalabafanov, she can only collect if there's a shvua. Then on Amud Beis, on Pei Zayin Amud Beis, we have Rabbi Shimon says anytime that she's collecting her ksuva, the Yorshim give her a shvua, and if she's not collecting her ksuva, they can't make a shvua. So the question is, what case is Rabbi Shimon talking about? So Rashi said the Gemara will talk about it. Here the Gemara is talking about it. Rabbi Shimon Ahaya. Which case of the Mishnahs Rabbi Shimon is arguing about? Rav Yirmiyah Aha. Rav Yirmiyah says on the following. So when the Mishnah says she can collect her ksuva even if he's overseas, not in front of him, she can only collect if she takes a shvua that she didn't receive it. So loshna lemizone, veloshna leksuva. And it doesn't matter if she's only collecting the mizonos. So obviously this is a case where he's still alive, but he's overseas. So they got divorced. So instead of demanding the whole ksuva, no, this doesn't. No, this is when he's still alive. This is when he's still alive, and they're not divorced. Meaning, because while they're married, he has to give her food and shelter. So he went overseas, and she says, "We need money for food, and the roof is leaking. We need it, so but we don't have access to his money. So Basin can sell a field of his or whatever to and give it to her for her and the kids. I mean, depending on the age of kids. So it's a case where they're still happily married, hopefully, but he's overseas. So she needs money somehow. So she has to Basin sell a field of his. Hefker Basin Hefker Basin has the authority to act in a case like this when he's not here. Or ksuva. So they got divorced and now he's overseas, but she wants her ksuva paid. If she takes a shvua that she didn't get this money, so then the Beis Din will listen to her and pay it get her the money, even though he's overseas. That and Rabbi Shimon is arguing and saying whenever she's collecting, she's demanding her ksuva, the heirs can make her take a shvua that she did not receive it.
So they divorced and he is overseas. How did that?
There's two cases. I mean, when it says loshna lemizone, that means that they didn't get divorced, but he went overseas for business or for whatever. But she needs money to buy food for the house. So they're still married, and it's from the obligation of the existing ksuva. They're still married. And then the case of ksuva means that they got divorced, and then he went overseas. So he gave her the get, but she's saying he didn't pay me my ksuva. In case of divorce, he has to. So the ksuva includes things he has to do while they're married, and it's money that he has to pay her if they get divorced, or if he dies. So
and ran to the ship.
Right, he gave the get and then he left. Right. So Rabbi Shimon was saying whenever she's demanding payment of her ksuva, so they can make her get a shvua, even though in this case it's not exactly a case of the heirs because the husband's still alive. But Eina Tavas ksuva. Now we go to Peches Amud Beis. If she's not demanding her ksuva, Eina Yorshin Mashbian also. The Yorshim are not able to make her a shvua. And this machlokus between Rabbi Shimon and the Tanakama is really the same machlokus that we have somewhere else. did not, because there's a Mishnah and later on in the last parak, or the second to last parak in Kesuvos, that says, Misha halach l'mdinas hayam, if someone traveled overseas, the ishto tabas mizonos, and his wife is coming to Basin saying, I need money for food and clothes, and my husband's not here. Can the Basin sell something so we could have cash to buy this stuff? Hanan omer tishava b'sof. Hanan says she only makes a shvua at the end, meaning if she's demanding for her whole ksuva. If a case, let's say, where they're divorced and he's not around. Below tishava b'tchila. But she doesn't swear and make an oath at the beginning. The beginning meaning if it's not for the payment of the full ksuva, because they're not divorced. So meaning if she's only asking for money for food from mizonos, she doesn't have to take a shvua. The sons of the Kohanim Gedolim argued on him, and they said, Tishava b'tchilo b'sof. Whether she's collecting for her whole ksuva, which is at the end, or even if she's collecting when they're not divorced and needs money for food and clothes, she has to take a shvua when her husband's not around. Rabbi Shimon kachanan, so Rabbi Shimon is holding like chana, because Rabbi Shimon says if they're demanding the ksuva, she has to take an oath. If she's not demanding the ksuva, she doesn't take an oath. So Rabbi Shimon holds like chanan. Rabbanan kibnei Kohanim Gedolim, and the Tanakama of our Mishnah holds like the Kohanim Gedolim, that even if if they're still married and the wife needs mizonos, food, so even in that case she needs to take a shvua. So that's how the first explanation that the Gemara gives for what Rabbi Shimon is arguing on. Maskil Rav Sheshes asked on this. Hi Yorshim Mashbiano. So Beis Mashbiano Sami Baile. Why is there Yorshim here? If they're still married and the husband's overseas, she's not demanding anything from any heirs. Heirs is a case where the husband's dead, but here he's not, and she'd be collecting the ksuba. But here it's not a case where he's dead and she's asking from the heirs. The husband's kids are with her. They might be her kids also, and let's even assume they are. So it's nothing to do with heirs. She's telling Basin, please sell one of his fields so we can buy food. So Basin is the one who would be asking her to swear that she doesn't have any money, that he didn't leave any money for her. So that's why Rav Sheshes doesn't like that. That's the case, because the word of the Yorshim, the heirs forcing her to swear, doesn't make sense. And that's the word Yorshim is on the second line of Pei Zayin Amid Beis in the Mishnah. So Elam Rav Sheshes, so Rav Sheshes gives a different explanation for what Rav Shimon is arguing about. Rav Shimon is talking about the following case. This we learned about 2 weeks ago already. If her husband died, and it's a case where either he made her the storekeeper or he made her in charge of his business dealings. So if she went from her husband's grave, so meaning he died, and she went back to her father's house, so that means she's not having any involvement in her late husband's business dealings anymore. Or she returned to her father-in-law's house, but she was not made in charge of the business dealing. So when she returned to her father-in-law's house, meaning is that she's staying in her late husband's house, and we learned in that case she can if she doesn't demand the ksuva, his estate will continue paying for her food and stuff until it reaches the value of the ksuva. Ein hayorshim mashmiano, so the yorshim are not able to make her swear anymore, because we said that if she's a business owner, if she's the storekeeper for her husband's goods, so he has beehives, or he has orange grove, and she's selling the oranges, or she's selling the honey. So once he does business stuff, so the Tanakama said that he can make her make an oath, just like anyone else would be in charge of the business. You gave me all the money, you didn't hold anything back, and there was an opinion in the Mishnah there that she can't live like that if the constant threat of having to take a shvuah from her husband. So in those cases, Eino Yorshim Meshbino. So once she's no longer the business involved in his business anymore, the heirs aren't able to make her take a shvuah. But if she was made in charge of his business dealings, Yorshim Meshbino Sala Asid Lavo, the heirs can make her take a shvuah on business things that happen from this on to the future. The Ein Mashmino Sala Masha'avar, but they're not able to make her take a shvuah on stuff that happened before she was made apitropos, meaning while their father was still alive. Rabbi Shimon Lameimar, and Rabbi Shimon is coming to argue Kozman Shetavas Ksuva Mashpia Osa. If she's coming to collect the shvua, her ksuva, they can make her take a shvua, even if she has nothing to do with the business dealings. But if she's not claiming her ksuva, in a yarshin mashpia Osa, the yarshin are not able to take a shvua, even if she is in charge of his businesses. And so Rabbi Shimon is arguing with an our Mishnah the same machlokas as Abshol and the Rabbanan. It's not because we learned in a Mishnah in Gittin, apitrapa shemino aviyasomim. So so uh so Levi, I guess Levi was sick and he was worried that he was going to die. So he already arranged a trustee who would act in case he would die, who would act on behalf of his estate for his kids. So these are Yisomim now because their father died, but the person in charge of the estate was appointed by their father before he died. Yishava, he has to take a shvua that he didn't keep anything of theirs. He gave it all to them. Minu based in, but if it's an apitropos that was appointed by based in, because a lot of times the person died and there was no one in charge to run the thing, so based in appointed a trustee. So if it was someone who was appointed by based in, lo yishava, he doesn't have to swear to them that he didn't keep anything for himself. Yes, if based in appointed him. But if the Beis Din appointed him, so then they don't have to take a shvuah. Rabbi Shal says chilaf advarim. No, you have to flip the things that you said. Beis Din Yeshava, if the Beis Din appointed him as the trustee to act on their behalf, Yeshava, then he has to make a shvuah later that he didn't take anything for himself. Of Yisomim, but if the Yisomim's father before he died appointed him to be in charge of the trustee to administer everything in case he dies, lo Yishava, he doesn't have to take a shvuah. Rabbi Shimon Kabbalah that he kept any of the stuff for himself. Rabbi Shimon Kabbalah, Rabbanan. So Rabbi Shimon in our Mishnah holds like Abba Shal over there in Gittin, and the Rabbanan in our Mishnah hold like the Rabbanan over there. Maskif Abaye doesn't like that explanation either, so he asked the question: Hi calls Masha Tavas Ksuva im Tavas mi Baile. It shouldn't say whenever. Calls Masha Tavas Ksuva means any case where she's going to be demanding a Ksuva, she needs a Shvua. But in this case, it should say im Tavas. If she would collect her Ksuva, then she could only collect with an oath. Alamar Abaye. So Abaye gives a different explanation of what the machlokas between Rabbi Shimon is in our Mishnah. He's arguing the following case: Kasav la neder shvur in the alacha. If a husband wrote to his wife that he wasn't going to make her take any vows or oaths, so this is going on was something we learned two daf ago. He's not able to force her. Neder hu shvua ein li. If he wrote, I, anyone or my heirs or anyone who's coming with my power or in my stead won't be able to impose a neder or a shvua on you. Neither on you nor on your heirs or on anyone who comes in your stead. He can't he can't make her take a shvua because he already promised her he put in the ksuva that he wasn't going to make her swear, and his yorshim and anyone who he gave power of attorney to, none of them are able to make her swear. Not just her, lo he lo yorshev lo haboim b'shusa, they can't make her swear or her heirs. Let's say she had a daughter from her previous marriage, and if she died, her inheritance goes to her daughters. We mentioned this a few weeks ago. So in this case, what they're arguing about the ksuva would have gone through her to her daughter. The Asa Reb Shimon Lamemer, and Reb Shimon is arguing Kozman Shetvas Ksuva Suvasa Yarshim Mashbino. So if whenever she collects, she's demanding her Ksuva, the Yarshim are able to make her take a Shvua that she didn't receive the Shvua, that she didn't receive the Ksuva, even though the husband had written to her that he wasn't going to make her take a Shvua. The Kamiflagi beplukta the Abishal ben Ima Miriam Rabbanan. And the Machlokas is the same Machlokas of Abishal ben Ima Miriam and the Rabbanan that we saw in that Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon Kabashal. Rabbi Shimon holds like Abishal that because we said in general in these cases you need to take an oath. She would need to take an oath that she didn't receive the ksuva, even though he had exempted her from taking an oath. That exemption isn't stronger than the need to take an oath in a situation like this. Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan holds like the Rabbanan because Abishal ben Ima Miriam said we wanted to safeguard the Yisomim. So even though the widow now has a right to her ksuva, but because we strengthened it in order to keep secure the estate of the Yisomim, we say we never collect from Yisomim without a shvua. The wife needs to take a shvua anyway, even though the husband had exempted her. And the Rabbanan said no, because he exempted her for having to take a shvua. Even in this case, she doesn't have to take a shvua. So it ends up that this machlokus of Rabbi Shimon is the same machlokus from a Mishnah for two Mishnayos before. Maskas for Rav Papa didn't like that explanation. He had a question. That makes sense when Kozman, whenever she is demanding her ksuva. But Rabbi Shimon says if she's not collecting her ksuva, she doesn't have to take a shvua. So if she's not collecting a shvua, why would she need to take a shvua? If you don't ask for anything, there's no reason to take an oath. So how come Rabbi Shimon says, and if she's not collecting her ksuva, then you don't need to make a shvua. There's no reason to take a shvua. She's not asking for anything. So Allah Amra Papa, Allah Fukim Rabbi Lazar Malchaku. So we're excluding the case of Rabbi Lazar and the people that he argued on. So it's not just the case of if the husband wrote, I am never gonna, me or anyone in my stead is never going to impose an oath upon you or your heirs or those who stand in your stead, but on the entire situation of Rabbi Lazar and the Machlokas. In regard to being an apotropos, if she was selling the stuff or in charge of his business. So Rabbi Shimon holds that if she's collecting her ksuva, the Yorshim are able to take her oath, even if their father had said that me or anyone of my heirs are never going to be able to ask you or your heirs to take a shvua. And it's a case where she was an apotropos, she was in charge of the store, or she was in charge of his business. So they're not allowed to impose a shvua on that stuff, but they are able to impose a shvua on if she's asking for her ksuva. Okay, Mishnah, last line of Pechasam and base. Hotzia get ve'eni maksuva. So this, well, it's not exactly what Jeff mentioned, but let's say she takes out her get and says, I got my get, and I want to get paid my ksuva. I don't have my ksuva, shtar. So pay tesam aleph gova ksuvaso. So even though she doesn't have the ksuva, the fact that she has her get is a big enough proof that that he hasn't paid her the ksuva, and he has to pay the amount of her ksuva. He can't say that I paid it and you gave it back to me and I ripped it up. Because normally, if she doesn't have the ksuva, why wouldn't she have the ksuva? Because once he paid it, it's worthless. So now he's able to, because she has it to collect it from him. If she did collect it from him, she gave it back to him and he rips it up. So is that what we say happened? No, we say that he probably didn't pay her. ksuva ve'enima get. What if she has a ksuva but she doesn't have a get? So why would a woman have a ksuva? Well, she's supposed to have a ksuva whenever she's married. If she doesn't have a get, it doesn't mean, and she says a ksuva, it says I want to get paid. Well, we don't know that she's divorced or widowed, you know. Uh, so because really she needs the get to tell us that she's divorced, and now ksuva to say and I want to get paid. So if she had the ksuva but no get, he omers avad giti, and she says I lost my get. V'hu omer avad shovri, and he says I paid my ksuva and I got a receipt. The shover is like a receipt. So who's more likely that she lost the get or he lost his receipt? V'chein bal chov shahotzi shtar chova enimo pruzbo. Or let's say Ruvain borrowed money from Shimon, so Shimon is paying the star and says, "I want to get paid." But meanwhile, from the date on the star, a shmita had passed, and shmita cancels the debt, and he doesn't give us a pruzbal that is a mechanism to collect even after shmita. So Rashi says it's just important to note that on the Torah level, if you give your star to Beis Din, so Beis Din can collect whenever they want, or it's like that. So Shemitah doesn't cancel the loan. Or if you when you took the loan, you took a collateral, Shemitah won't cancel it either because of the collateral. It's considered as if it's kind of not outstanding. So after Shemitah comes, if the person pays back and you give back and you're going to give back the collateral that you're holding. We're not just saying it's like a house that's a collateral, but they had a fancy watch, so you took their watch as collateral to pay back. So even though Shemitah passed, the loan can still be collected. And then Hillel said, if you write this thing called pruzbul, so Shemitah won't cancel it either. So it seems from Rashi, my impression is that writing this pruzbul is a mechanism. Instead of having to give all of your loan documents to Beis Din, it works along those same lines without actually having to do that. And that's the kula, the innovation that Hillel made. But I think when I was in Kirbi Avna, I think Rabbi Silver gave a few explanations that it's based on the mashkon, and I don't understand why that would work, but he gave some explanations that that it works like collateral. I don't understand, but I was surprised. But I think that's what I heard from him. Rashi here, it's pretty explicit that when Hillel made the prozbul, it's based on the idea. It's as if you're giving your shtaros over to Beis Din, and since Beis Din can apply, it can declare things ownerless and collect things or give it from one to the other. So it's considered as if it's paid back now. So hare elu lo yiparu. These cannot be paid back because you don't have a prozbul. The odds are Shemitah canceled it. This woman who has a ksuva but not a get, so we're not able to collect it. It's more likely that he lost his receipt than she lost the get. So the ksuva is not collectible right now. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer min hasakana ve'elach each gova ksuvaso shelo beget u'bachov gova shelo bepruzbul. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says from the time that it was dangerous and on, Rashi says the danger was that the Goyim said you can't keep halacha, so people didn't want to have shtaros laying around. I mean, a regular loan document isn't a religious document, but a pruzbul shows that you're trying to deal with halacha. A get shows you're trying to deal with halacha. So people didn't want to have a get hanging around or a pruzbul hanging around because if they would get inspected by the government, they'd get in trouble for it. So because of that, people didn't want to hang the documents around. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says so. The excuse here or the mechanism which allows it not to be collectible doesn't apply here. So she has a ksuva without the get. So to have a ksuva is not, I mean, it might be based on a religious idea of marriage, but it's not inherently religious. It's an obligation of money from one person to the other. So, but the get is a religious thing, so that they didn't want to have that. They were scared to keep that. So, even so, people commonly didn't have their getting anymore because they would get rid of it because it was an incriminating document that they were involved in subversive religious activities. Was that what they would call it, Jeff? Subversive rebellion against the communist government or the Greek Yevanim government.
People would sign signed off on the get,
So yeah, the Gemara is going to talk about that. Yeah. What if you have the witnesses who said we saw it delivered? Yeah, that's a good point.
I haven't seen that brought up before.
Right. So I mean, if we were learning Gittin, so that's a big machlokas right at the beginning. Are those the Adam who sign on the get the important witnesses, or the Adam Asira, the ones who see him giving the get over to her, the important Gittin? Normally, nowadays, the Beis Din uses the same witnesses who signed it to see it being given over. And if we know that the husband and wife aren't there at the same time, we write a separate harsha, a document of agency saying that we watched this getting written and we signed our names on it, and the Beis Din will sign it that it took place, and we're giving the get into the agency of so and so who's going to be the shliach to deliver the get in place of the husband to the wife, whatever. And then that the very first Mishnah in Gittin, if you bring a get from Chutz La'aretz, here to Yisrael, you have to say b'fanei nachtam. And so when that happens, then the shliach will say b'fanei nachtam. In front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. Here, a lot of times, Yochanan Nathan, who's the sofer, he's the shliach also. So he doesn't say b'fanei nachtam because he wrote it. It wasn't written in his presence. He himself wrote it. So he says v'getzeh kasafti u'b'fanei nachtam. So he says I wrote the get and it was signed. So he doesn't use the phrase because he was actually the one who wrote it and he's the agent. I don't know. A few months ago, I saw someone who he was at a Beis Din and he saw it happen. He's like, "Oh, I learned Gittin so many years ago, and I was never lamaisa. Now finally, I see that someone said b'fanei nachtam." But that it's at the end of Daf Yomi for Gittin, the OU I think it was on one of their, because they have a lot of different Daf Yomi shiurim and stuff on their app or on their website. So I think it was the OU. They made a thing so you see what a get looks like. In case you don't see what it is, they have the husband coming from the base and say the declarations he has to make, and then giving over the quill and the paper and the utensils and the ink that's going to write. You see, they did a fake thing, but the same way it is, so people see what the process is. If you learn the whole Masechtas Gittin, you don't actually necessarily know the whole process. And when we learned Kesuvos, like was probably a year ago already, one day I brought a text of a Kesuva. It says, this is what the Kesuva says. But we learned the whole Kesuvos, we don't necessarily see all the clauses and what it looks like as a whole document. When you learn Chulin, it's important to go to the shacht house and see how they test the knife, how they shach the animals, how they feel. Obviously, when we don't feel inside the lungs, we don't know what we're feeling for. If someone was going to be a shochet, then they start feeling and know what they have to feel for. But you have to see it in action. The Torah isn't just a theoretical thing. It's to be done. Lishmor v'lasos ulakayim is called divrei samot Torah b'yava. So then also at the end of Yevamos, they had done that. What does a chalitza process look like? Because in one of the later Pragim in Yevamos is about chalitza. So if the husband died without any heirs, so then she has to take the shoe off of his brother and throw it over her shoulder, and so they made a fake video for that also. It's important so people know what it looks like. Lahavdil, this is what 12 years ago already when they had that it was right after I became associate rabbi, and they had that thing at Shell. It's Avi Zavatovsky and Ari Zavatovsky and Ari was in Greenberg. They came with to say that certain animals are kosher and certain animal. We have a Masorah. They went to a Taimani rabbi, a big Talmud Chacham from Yemen, and he said this is what the kosher grasshoppers were. So they came to a bunch of random people who were willing to pay a few $100s for dinner, and they said, we're transmitting the Masorah to you that this is a kosher animal or a certain type of fowl. and they said this is a kosher species, but we're not veterinarians, we're not animal experts. It doesn't mean anything for us. But you have to give it to people who understand what it means. To say they had a live thing there and said this is a kosher species. So it's important to know. I mean, just as related to that, they hold it's kosher, but there's something called the Muscovy duck. And Rabbi Schwartz, I heard from Rabbi Schwartz that years ago a certain owner of a thing bought a whole bunch of these ducks. And when he told to the shachtim that he hired shachtim, they're like, we're not shachting it. This is not a kosher species. And uh there is a bit of a machlokas. Is it a kosher species? I think the Ari and Ari feel that it is kosher, and there are plenty of people who felt it wasn't kosher. And as someone, a rabbi here in Chicago, not a puppet rabbi, but a rabbi, and I think he mentioned that according to the Sephardi, even if it's a good hechsher, I think he said that the good Sephardi hechsher holds at Muscovy duck, which is kosher in Israel, and the Ashkenazi bedatzes hold that it's not. So he made a comment about that, about which the hechsher of the restaurant you go to. In Israel, it could be a difference for something like that. If it's a fancy restaurant, I guess. Yeah, so I got on this tangent, but we should know what these process look like. What does it look like to give a get? The whole process. What's a chalitza look like? Which animals are kosher? What does shechita look like?
What's the feeling on turkey in general in Israel?
I think in general it is accepted because a lot of places I went to had, but then again, those were nice.
I mean, they have turkey breast, they're, the sliced,
Yeah,
bread.
right. And there's right. So and there's so let's say that's way up north. It's 120 degrees in the summer near uh what's it called? Not B'nai Daron. Whatever, one of those brands. So it's near Tveria and it's very hot there. They also used to sell air conditioners and now like Tirat Tzvi. So Tirat Tzvi, if you're in Israel, they have a Tirat Tzvi with a regular hachsher, and then they have the Tirat Tzvi with the higher level hachsher. And you're right, they do have a higher level hachsher that on their turkey breast and whatever. So that's true. I don't know if all the bedats as well, but yeah, there are some. Yeah, so I don't know what the story on turkey is there. But then again, the OU gives a hechsher on turkeys, and Herschel Schachter holds that you shouldn't eat turkey.
Right.
And he's their posek now that Rabbi Belsky died. He's the main posek, but they still do it. So
Does some different things also.
yeah. Okay, Gemara. Shma mina kosvin shover. So from the fact that this Mishnah says that in the second case she doesn't have a get, and she say, but I lost my get, and he doesn't have but she doesn't have a ksuva. No, she has the get and says I lost my ksuva. No, in the second line here on Pei Tesamid Beis, she says I lost my get, and he says I lost my receipt. Then she's not able to get paid. We believe him that he lost his receipt, more likely than she lost the get. So from the fact that the Mishnah says that, it shows that we're supposed to write a receipt when we pay. Excuse me. Rashi says it's going in the first case. She had her get and not a ksuva, so he has to pay her the ksuva. So that shows that we normally we would write a receipt, because if he really would have paid the get, he would have a receipt to show that the ksuva. He would have a receipt to show that he already paid the ksuva. The ein kosvin shover lechush doma mafkele l'ksuvasa v'gavyaba. Because if we wouldn't write a receipt that he paid the ksuva, maybe she's going to keep going from basin to basin, showing her ksuva and collecting it multiple times. So it must be that we have to write a receipt. So Amarav, Rav says, no, that's not a proof. B'makom shein kosvin ksuva skina. We're dealing with the place where they didn't write a ksuva. So since she doesn't have a ksuva, she has to use her get not just as a get, but as a ksuva. Ushmuel Amar, but Shmuel says ksuva. Even if they write a ksuva, if she brings her get and without a ksuva, we believe that because she shows us that she has a get, we make the husband pay the ksuva. So according to Shmuel, shouldn't you have to write a receipt that he paid it so she can't keep showing her get from place to place and she can extort the ksuva multiple times? Rav Anan says, so Mar Shmuel, the master Shmuel, explained it to me. He explained to me what he meant. The Makom she'ein kosvin, if they don't write a ksuva, va'amar kasafti, and the husband says, I wrote it. I know normally people here don't write a ksuva, but I wrote a ksuva. Alav l'haviraya, he has to bring a proof that he actually wrote the ksuva. So therefore, so if she would have collected the ksuva from him, he would have gotten it back. But so even though he says that that's what happened, because it's unusual that they write a ksuva, he has to bring evidence, bring witnesses that that's what happened in his case. But Malcolm Shakosvin, if it's a place where they normally do write a ksuva, the amra lo kasavli, and the wife comes and says, my husband didn't write the ksuva. He relied on the Tanai Basin, that whenever you get married, there's an obligation for the value of what we call a ksuva. The amra li lo, she said, I didn't. Allah haviraya. She has to bring a raya that he didn't write it, and only then will she be believed to collect her ksuva based on the get. That's what we're saying. So if there's a deviation from the normal custom, it depends on what the deviation was. If the husband has to bring a proof, and then if he brings a proof he doesn't have to pay, or the wife has to bring the proof that she didn't receive a ksuva, and then in that case she'd be believed to pay just by giving her get. The Af Rav Hadarbe, but Rav himself retracted from his original answer. Rav's original answer was we're talking about a case where they didn't write a ksuva. The Amar Rav, because Rav said, Bain b'makom shekosrin, Bain b'makom she'ein kosrin, whether it's a place where they write a ksuva or whether it's a place where they don't, get gova ikr. If she produces her get, she'll get the basic ksuva, the 100 or 200 zuz. But ksuva gova tosefes. If she can show her ksuva, then she can get anything over and above those minimum amounts that the husband promised. And whoever wants to respond and argue with me, Yavav Yashiv, let him come and argue. So we mentioned many times that in the United States, we don't really put on any additional money. But in Israel, they do put additional money. And we said Moroccans like, I think, the number 6. So they're like putting like 606,666 shekel and 66 agorot. Or maybe someone had wrote 6,666,000, and then when they got divorced, they say, well, we just putting these 6, but I never had full intent on paying it. The basin said, no, you have to pay it. That's the money that was put in, and they signed on it. So I saw a case like that in the news. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, ksuva ve'eni maget. Our Mishnah says in the second case, if she had a ksuva but no get, he omer savad giti. She says, I lost my get. V'lover over shovri, and he says, I already paid it, but I lost my receipt. V'chein b'chov shahotzi shtarcho ve'eni mo pruzbol harei lo yiparu. Or a creditor has a document, so he has the star that Shmuel owes him money, ve'eni mo pruzbol, but he doesn't have a pruzbol, and Shemitah had passed. So in which case the star is unenforceable. Harei lo yiparu. They can't collect. The wife can't collect her ksuva because she doesn't have her get, and the creditor can't because he doesn't have a pruzbol. So Shemitah would have canceled his let. Bishlama l'Shmuel. We understand the way Shmuel explained the first case of the Mishnah. Muki lebamakom shein kosvin. He could say that the second case is a case where they don't write a ksuva, and from the fact that she has a ksuva doesn't mean anything because most people in this place don't have a ksuva, and if they would just show their get, they would pay. They get paid by showing their get, and she doesn't have a get to show. But Amar Kasafti, and the husband saying, I wrote a ksuva, Damrina le Aiti Raya, is like as Shmuel explained, if we tell him to bring a proof that you did write a ksuva, even though the custom of this place is not Vimlo Maisi Raya, and if you can't prove to us that you did write the ksuva, Amrina le Zil Pare, we tell him that you have to pay the ksuva. El Rav, but according to Rav, so we understand the second case of the Mishnah. El Rav, but according to the way that Rav explained it, that whenever she shows her get, she gets the basic sufa, but she doesn't get the extra, the tosefes nihi de ikr logavia. So here, when she has no get, she can't get her basic 100 or 200 zuz tosefes mia tigve. So we have a main thing and we have an additional. According to Rav, she collects the main thing, the 100 or the 200, when she shows her get. If there's anything over and above that promise, that she can collect that if she does the ksuva. But here, what's the main thing? The 100 or the 200. Does it make any sense to say she can get the extra if you're not getting the main thing? It would be like saying you can get the dessert without the main course. No, you have to have the main course before you have the dessert. If she can't show that she has her get, and get the original 100 or 200 ikr ksuva, the main thing of ksuva, how could you get the extras? It doesn't make sense. So Rav Yosef says, so this is Marty where you started asking about. So this is a case where there are no witnesses of the divorce there. So Mego Logirashtia, since the husband is able to say she doesn't have a get, there's no one here, I never divorced her. He could have said that, but from the fact that he says, I did divorce her, but I didn't pay, he has the strength of a megu. He's able to say that I divorced her and I paid her the ksuva. But in the second case of the Mishnah, or the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, from the time that it was dangerous to have religious documents around, so the woman could collect her ksuva without a get, and the bachov could collect his loan even though Shemitah had come in between the giving of the loan and today, even though he doesn't have a prosbol. But the ika eda gerushin askina. So we could say that that's in a case where we have witnesses that they were divorced. She just doesn't have a get. The leika eda gerushin, but my gavia. But if there are no witnesses of the gerushin, how could she collect? So Elokula Rabbi Shimon Gamliel he. So we could say that the entire Mishnah, there's no argument in the Mishnah. The whole Mishnah follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. But we have a few phrases missing in our Mishnah. But this is how it would read in its entirety and in its correct form. So the woman with her ksuva without her get, or the man, the creditor with the loan document but not a prosbol, they cannot collect. But that's true when there are no witnesses to the gerushin, aval yesham gerushin. But if there are witnesses to the divorce, Gavia Tosefes, she's able to collect even she's able to collect the additional part of the ksuva, the ikar, and about the main part of the ksuva, the 100 or the 200 zuz. Imafka gita gavia, if she has a get, she can collect it. Vilamefka gita lo gavia, and if she can't show her get, she's not going to collect that part. I mean, it's a kind of a elach, but from the time it was dangerous to keep religious documents, alpha gavda lo mafka gita gavia, even though she didn't give a get, she can collect the 100 or 200 zuz. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, because Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says it's a kind of a elach, isha g'tovu ksuvasa blogat. In the time that it was dangerous to keep religious documents, a woman was able to collect her ksuva even though she didn't have her get. So the whole thing is in according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and it's not Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer as if he's saying something else, but we have this extra phrase. And the justification for the Mishnah passing this way is because this is Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's opinion. Once it was dangerous to have shtaros, you could collect without the extra religious document you had the ksuva but not the get, or the loan document without the prosbol, you're able to collect. So let's leave it here.